Hey guys, it's James here again, and today we're going to be doing another scope review. Now, some of you would have seen in previous videos that I've moved away from my sidewinders after quite a few years using those, and I've gone across to this. Now, this is the Vortex Diamondback. It's the 6-24, and it's first focal plane. So after a while of using second focal plane, I've now gone across to first. So as it stands at the moment, obviously this is the week before the British Shooting Show, and this scope is up for the best scope at under £1,000. Now they retail around 470, but obviously local dealers may be able to do a little bit of wiggle room for you. But how does this scope stack up, and is it even worthy of the title of the best scope of under £1,000? So what we'll do is we'll take a look at the specs, what you get for your money, and then we'll move in, give you my thoughts, and yeah, let's go from there. Okay, so 470 quid. It's quite a lot of money for a scope, but in the grand scheme of things, I would actually say it's still in the affordable price bracket. Obviously, it's going to have its pros, but it will have its cons, because at £470, obviously, it's not going to have all the features in the world. However, it does come with the usual gizmos. You get the sunshades that you can see I've already fitted on the top here. You get a rubber cap as well that just slips over to protect the glass, obviously when it's in transit, if you've got it in a slip. Or if the weather's not great, you just put the clips on, just stops your scope from getting completely wetted up and misty and horrible. And it also comes with a cleaning cloth and then just some instructions. Now the instructions I actually think are very useful. One of the instructions just tells you it's a scope, how to use the scope. Very generic, please make sure it's centered, put it in the mounts, don't over torque it, the usual stuff. But the second one is actually how to use the reticule, because obviously a lot of people will pick up the reticule and they'll go, oh look, it's got loads of lines and numbers on it, and they won't have a flying foggy on what any of it means. They just think it looks cool and they go from there. But with the instructions, it actually guides you through MOA, how it works, how the scope works, how the clicks work in relation to the reticule, and then also the fact that it's first focal, so it doesn't change. When you zoom in, your holdovers remain the same. The only difference is that it extends the size, it magnifies the size of the ret in your eye. So if you've ever used like what I would call a normal scope, so a second focal plane scope, when you zoom in, the reticule stays the same size, but then all your holdovers are a bit different, obviously depending on what magnification you're working from. With first focal plane, you change the magnification, the ret changes in relation to whatever you've got your mag. Now that has its advantages. Obviously, if you're working at what I'd call normal ranges, your holdovers remain the same. Realistically, with air guns, you're only going to be sort of looking anywhere between, say, 35 and 65 yards in normal day conditions. Anything beyond that, not too much. But if you are shooting long range, that can pose a bit of an issue. Obviously, as the reticule gets bigger, it expands to fill up the space of what you can see in front of you, and you will lose the bottom of some of the ret when you're on those higher magnifications. So if you're doing long range shooting, first focal plane maybe isn't the best choice unless you're going to be playing with the mounts, and then you can go from there really. So that is what's included. Let's have a look at the specs and what the scope is made of. So as I say, this is the 6-24x50 model, so the objective is 50 wide, and obviously you've got your 6-24 range in your magnification. Now it features a 30mm tube, nothing too out of the ordinary with there, so you've got loads of mounting options. You can see here I've opted for my sports match mounts. And then one big thing for me really was the turrets. Now for me, I like my turrets to be exposed. It's a bit of a kind of a personal preference. Some people just like normal caps that you can just take off and adjust when you need to. I do a lot with clicks, so to be able just to adjust the clicks is really helpful. Now you've got a full range of 65 MOA either side. That's a lot of adjustment. You probably find you will never use that. The elevation maybe if you're using height, but not in normal shooting conditions. And that's 65 both left to right, up and down. Now each click is worth 1/4 of an inch at 100 yards. So it's a quarter MOA click. They're really positive. They actually mean what they say they mean on the tin. You would have probably seen a video before where I go into explaining MOA, and how it works in a lot more detail. It's a bit geeky. It's interesting. If that's the kind of thing that you want to watch, I'll put a link down below or up here or somewhere so you can see what that means. But as I say, 2 exposed turrets, 1/4 MOA adjustments, really, really good. Now, the only thing they don't feature, obviously, as I say, it's got its limitations at a £470 scope. There is no zero stop, so there's no zero bumper. So you can't set your zero, lock it, and then go loads of clicks in whatever direction, and then put it back and it just stops at your zero. But what you can do is you can reset the turrets. Now, it's nice and simple to do. I tend to use a coin. Just stick them in the slots that you can see here, take the turrets off, rotate it round to zero, screw it back down, and you're good to go. And then you know from there on, if you make, say, 4 clicks or whatever, you've used an inch at 100. So you can count your clicks via there rather than having to rely on a zero stop. So it's not all negatives. Now, one other thing that this scope does, if we just swap it round to this side, is it is side parallax, a side focus. So you're not having to worry about adjusting your objective or an AO scope. It is side objective. Now, the reason I opted for this over some of the other Vortex models is this can be parallaxed down to 10 yards. Now, if you're shooting competition or if you're shooting game, sometimes your targets are only 10 yards. Not everything is going to be in what I would call rimfire and centerfire ranges. So to be able to come right down to 10 yards with this scope is really good. It allows me to work within trees, in buildings, with ease, and it will go as far as you want it to see, as far out as you can go. Now, the furthest I've taken one of these scopes on any of my guns was 250 yards, and that was with the FX Crown. Still, the clarity at those ranges was spot on. It was really, really good, nice and clear. So if you are thinking about using it on a centre fire, your 223, something like that, your working ranges are going to be well within the capability of this scope. Now, adjusting the magnification, again, super simple. You just twist, rotate here. Nice and simple to use. When you first pick it up out the box, it might seem a little bit stiff, but I assure you, the more you use it, it plays up, and it's super easy to then rotate it. And obviously just your ocular adjustments on the end. Tune that to suit your eyes. That's a personal thing, so I can't really offer any advice on that for anybody that's interested. Okay, so the ret. We've seen the build of the scope, but what about the reticule itself? Now, this uses an EBR-2C reticule, and it comes in 2 options. You've got MRAD or MOA. Now again, that's personal preference. Me, at the moment, centerfire, I run MRAD, air guns, I run MOA. It's super confusing, but it keeps people like me busy, because I just sit and work out the maths between the two of them. They've both got their advantages, they've both got their disadvantages, depending on your chosen application. Now, the ret, for a lot of people, will make or break a gun. It's a very personal thing. It's something that only you can really decide if you're going to get on with. So my best advice is actually, if you're interested in getting a scope like this, go and have a look at one and see what you make of it. Now, it's a very fine reticule. Obviously, it does get bigger, as I explained earlier, as you change the magnification round, but it's very fine. It does, however, have all of the information that I think is needed without having too much information. Some scopes I have seen, Nikos can be a little bit guilty of this sometimes, will have all of the lines and dots on the screen, and it's just, I think a lot of information gets lost. I think people just look at the scopes and go, oh my god, it's got all the data. Whereas, actually, do you need it? This scope here with this ret, I think, has got that perfect balance. It's got all of the information, but it's not over the top, which is, it makes a really pleasant change. So that's the ret. As I say, that's kind of a very subjective thing. You will need to have a look at one of those and make your own mind up from there. Okay, so I've got the Crown loaded up with some 27 grain 22 caliber H&N hollow point slugs. As I say, we're currently experimenting with slugs. I'm going to fire my first shot. In theory, it should be on target, so we should hear a ting. I'm then going to add 10 clicks on each way, take them back off, and then we'll see if it's held at zero. Now, the target I'm aiming up there at the moment is about 5mm in diameter. So in theory, if the adjustments are accurate and consistent, when I take them back off again, we should be bang on target. Here's hoping I can hit them. So first shot, make 10 clicks for adjustment, take them back off, second shot. One, two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exactly where it needs to be. So, clicks are accurate. Okay, so what do I make of this scope overall? Now, for £470, thereabouts in the UK, you do get a lot for your money. Now, you will be missing certain features that maybe are on some of the top end scopes, such as zero stop and illuminated ret. But in the scope's defence, I've been using it in some pretty horrible conditions, foggy, misty woods. You know, we've got tree cover, we've got the fog. There was rain on the lenses, and I was still able to make the ret out at decent range for woodland. In all of those conditions, enough to place accurate shots and to do what I needed to do. This gun so far this year has accounted for more squirrels than I think I've shot in the last couple of years. So this current setup is working really nice, even in low light conditions. So the illuminated ret, yes, sometimes it's nice to have, but I don't think it's a game changer or a deal breaker, again in my own opinion on that one. You do get an awful lot, and I mean that's where this scope kind of excels. You get the external turrets that actually click accurately, you get a decent reticule, and something that I haven't mentioned, which really kind of played a big part in my mind when looking at buying this scope, was the warranty that it comes with. They will basically fix anything that goes wrong with these products as long as you have a bit of it to send back to them. Now, I've seen people, obviously they post up examples on their social media, Vortex, who have driven over their scopes. Now, some would argue that's an easy mistake. I would kind of argue, what on earth, and trashed the optics, and they've replaced them. There's been cases where people have lost their homes in fires. I think it was California a couple of years ago, and they've replaced the red dots. They genuinely seem to be behind the fact that their warranty is the best. And that for me is reassuring, because when I'm at work and I'm moving my impact up and down ladders and this and that, if it gets dropped, I've potentially got the cover there to make sure that I've still got a scope to use at the end of the day. Gun might be knackered, but I can still spot things with the scope. Now, I will do more with this scope as well in the coming months. As you saw earlier, we're currently setting the crown up to run with slugs. Got some really exciting things planned with this gun in particular in the next couple of months. We're just waiting for the weather to sort out, and for me to finally be home for more than 2 days in a week. As it stands, we've got the British Shooting Show next week, and then I'm off training in the Peak District for a month. So I'm going to be away from home for a little while. When I do come home, we will do an awful lot more with this gun in particular. I will also bring out a slightly different gun that I've got that's got the Viper PST Gen 2 on the top of it, and compare it to this scope and show you where the money goes. Obviously that is a much more expensive scope. It's over double the cost of what this cost, and it's one of the best scopes I've ever used, but as I say, we'll bring that to you later. Thank you very much for watching. This is a different video for us. Usually we do guns and shooting, so I thought I'd take some time out to show a product that actually I think is worthy of the award that it's placed at. And for me, for its price point, this is by far the best scope that I've ever come across for under £1,000. So anyway, any questions, any comments, feel free to put them below. I'll try and get back to anybody that I can that's constructive as we possibly can. Facebook, Instagram, obviously we're on all of the unsocial medias, so feel free to check us out on there. I've got loads of pictures, particularly of this one in use in recent weeks, being posted on Instagram, as I say, on Facebook as well. And that's where I'll be posting a lot of my updates. As I say, we might be a little bit of a gap between now and the next video, but as soon as I'm home, as soon as I'm back from training, we will get back out, back filming, and we will take this gun out to ranges that it has never been to before. As you may have seen on our Facebook page, 250 yards is now my current record with this gun. I'm aiming for 350, and then we will be going for 400. It'll be interesting to see how the crown does. It'll also be interesting to see what I'm going to have to change I'm thinking a longer barrel, just to get a bit more of the FPS. But anyway, we'll go into that in another video. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.